everyone, I'm Dan Albers, and welcome to the Positive Energy Podcast, positive stories about positive people. And Steve, I'll tell you what, we talk about, let's real quick, we got to say that we're sponsored by Jim Serger. Jim Serger's sixth book is now out in paperback form. Steve and I, as well as 90 other folks from coast to coast, share their story of the tragic day of 9/11. Book available anywhere books are sold or jimserger.com. So thanks to Jim Serger for sponsoring these.
Great timing on that book,
too. It really is, because a couple of days away from obviously the anniversary. But we talk about positive stories about positive people, and Dan Becker just exudes that for us. This is exactly what when we thought about doing this podcast.
Yes,
he's one of the first people we thought about, just because everything that he's been through. So it's going to be great to get his story, to hear what he's been through.
Well, yeah, and I just want to open it up and let him talk, because I want to hear about his courage and strength and his story. Because I know there's other people that have gone through what he's gone through, and I want to make sure we get this word out there. So I'm anxious to hear his story.
Absolutely. So as we said, joining us is Dan Becker. Dan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Dan, for having me. I appreciate it.
So let's kind of get right into it. We obviously, Steve and I have followed your story. That's why we've got you on here. So let's talk about. I know when I was researching some of the stuff about you that you've had some obviously kidney transplants, and in your first one I did not realize was at 9 years old. So let's just kind of talk about your story and how you had some kidney issues and bring it to light.
Sure. So when I was born, I had a congenital birth defect. My ureters, which is the two tubes that bring the urine from the kidneys down to the bladder, they were never formally formed.
Okay.
So I had about 12 operations from birth until 9. And then at 9 years old, we got the call. I was out riding, and very well, I was out riding bikes with John Tolkien.
Oh, yeah.
Out in the old woods where now developed, of course.
Yeah.
And came back, and my mom came out and she's like, "We're going to the hospital." So, like, I remember the day. I don't really remember the details other than the moment when I rode my bike back.
Okay.
And the advancements since then have been amazing.
Yeah.
My first transplant, I was in ICU for a month.
Wow.
Now you're in and out in 4 days.
That's
something. Were you at Children's Hospital?
Yes.
Okay.
Children's.
Do you remember a lot of that surgery and just the memories of that at that little of an age, at 9 years old? Do you remember much of it?
There's a few things I remember. I remember my parents coming in, because I don't think they were as advanced or didn't know as much about immunosuppressants. So my parents came in to see me, and I remember they were in surgical garb, and I remember still kind of screwed up from the anesthesia. Like I said, my dad, "Hey, Dr. Becker."
Yeah, there you go.
So I remember that, and I remember coming home after 30 days. I had failed 3rd grade, and then I had a tutor in August, and then went on to 4th grade right away. So I didn't skip a beat. And I remember feeling great and just being a normal kid. After that, obviously before that, I was affected with a lot of surgeries. Re-entering the friends group each time, which I've talked to or talked about in other forums, but. Because what I've done, so I got divorced 3 years ago, and I think that has been, not the surgeries, but heartbreak or those things. And Nicole, who I mentioned to dinner last night, I think pain, the difficult times is really the catalyst that pushes change. Because without that, you kind of just keep going, and I don't think you really go through a growth period. Unless you go through that. So then once you realize that, you almost have to look at pain as almost a welcomed opportunity to grow through your faith.
I totally agree.
Well, obviously you've gone through a lot of challenges and adversities, but growing up and having surgeries at such an early age, what were some of the effects, whether it be food or physical wise, that affected you, that you had to retrain yourself?
So when you're in kidney failure, you have to watch your sodium intake, and you really should anyway, but sodium, potassium, your potassium, which causes heart attacks if your potassium is too high.
Okay.
You just have to really watch what you're eating from a diet standpoint.
Okay, so what were some of the do's and don'ts of food for sodium? Because I don't know the first thing about that.
Well, like canned food, processed food, versus the main thing, and not just kidney patients, but I think the healthiest diet is like the Mediterranean diet. Greens, fish, chicken, white meat.
So were you always checking, like, even if you went to like a restaurant? I mean, I find it challenging for me when I'm still trying to lose weight. I can't even imagine the extra pressure that you would feel as a kidney, you know what I mean? That's kind of how I'm looking at it. Like, that's got to be a daunting task for you to feel like, oh my God, I've got it. You know what I mean? Like,
it's funny that you bring that up, because 2 nights ago when I ran into Pam Moon. So I'm somewhat active with Off the List. I was a speaker with Tanya O'Rourke this past Thursday.
Great.
And I look at it as I've been blessed by being sick my whole life. Because if you're sick now, you know what life is like before that. I compared it to losing your sight. I'd rather be blind and learn Braille off the bat than to go through the grief of going blind.
That's true.
Then, oh my gosh, I got to learn Braille. So I think it's a blessing that it was from birth.
You hear this?
I mean, it's crazy.
I mean, just to even say that, is incredible.
Because it's all you know.
You've embraced it.
And I'm sitting there thinking, what you just saying that just popped in my head about my son Tyler. Tyler's has juvenile diabetes, and he's had it since he was 3 years old, and that's all he knows.
Right.
And he has a lot of struggles still with. He always feels that he's, as he says, he's not normal. He just wants to be not normal. Not
have to worry about anything.
Right. I mean, and he's always worried about that. So that's a kind of a great point that you said. He knows, instead of being at our age and then being diabetic. I think that would be. I don't know. But that's a great point you bring up.
But ironically, you just made me think of the struggles that I had growing up was because when you have a transplant, it's in your gut.
Right.
So my dad played football for University of Cincinnati, and so I grew up loving football, but I could never play because of the physical contact. I had to wear a shell to play back in the KBA, the KBA days.
Nice.
So that was probably my biggest thing, was that I couldn't necessarily participate in sports
that had been hard.
Enjoyed. So from that standpoint, I think was from a psychological standpoint.
How many surgeries have you had?
I'd say, poor 12.
Oh my gosh.
These are
16, probably around 20.
Is that right?
Yeah.
My gosh.
Well, I know. So, and you said that the at 9 years old, and I think what I remember reading was that lasted for 26 years.
Yeah.
Is that correct? And then after that, you had your third one. And that lasted 10 years.
10
years.
Okay.
And then 8 years. Right.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah. And I joke because, when you're in your teens, 20s, and really probably till 30, you kind of feel invincible, right?
Right.
So I went to OU, did the OU thing for a year, failed out.
as many did.
Right.
Yeah.
But I lived that lifestyle. I drank a ton of beer.
Okay.
Everybody's like, oh, what happened to the kid? I'm not condoning anyone, but I'm just saying that I lived my life as a normal kid.
Right. Sure.
And I joke to my doctors, like, maybe I should start drinking that much beer again.
That could be, and the one thing that I've noticed with you too is, obviously we're friends on Facebook and everything, is that you're very faithful, and you go to Crossroads, and to me, I also feel that that's a big part of healing and getting through your process is going to church and praying and do you feel like that's because I see that you post a lot of stuff about that.
Absolutely. I'd say about 3 years ago to 3 or 4 years ago, I really found my faith. Well, there's 2 times. before the third transplant, I was on dialysis for about 6 months or so.
Okay.
And during that process, you're in a room with other people. I watched 2 people have strokes and pass, like right in front of me.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So I think that's where my faith really, there's a song, I listen to a lot of worship music called It Is Well, and I don't know if you ever heard the poem. So the poem is about a captain of a ship back in the 1500s when they were started the United States. He had come over, then he sent for his wife and kids. The ship got within sight and then it just blew up.
Oh, no. Oh, geez.
So the song is about it as well with my soul, because it's whatever God gives you to handle, you have to be good with it. Mm-hmm. You have to submit to what.
Right.
So when I'm in a place of struggle, I
the worship and
kind of go to that song.
That's
actually.
great. Yeah.
And I mean, there's a couple of worship songs that I really go to when I'm in a bad place.
Mine is I don't know, Steve, Lauren Daigle. I just love listening to her stuff, and when I'm down and depressed or whatever things are, that's somebody that I like listen to that brings me up, and and we're talking about all this stuff, but that to me is a good positive thing for all of us, and I think me especially, I struggled a lot with faith and church and God and all that stuff because, hey, I'm a jock and I'm Dan Albert, I shouldn't be talking about God, or I shouldn't be doing all this. And so there was that perception, I think, that guys like myself had, like, oh, they're going to think I'm one of those Bible beaters. You know what I mean? So there was a struggle with that. I think
it's not cool.
And then I had a situation happen to me that changed my outlook on God and everything, and friends and everything that's going on in life. And I think that it's you don't have to be embarrassed about your faith, and it's got you through a difficult time of your life, and it's got me through a difficult time of my life.
I'm proud of my faith. I'm outdated because I'm divorced, and that's one of the first things I look for in a partner is their faith, because I think when I kind of found out that this fourth transplant was going to happen, because I've had 3, there's issues of, are you worthy for another transplant? There's people, so you go through the worthiness question of, there's people that don't get transplants at all. So I went through this process of, first I worked on my faith, then I worked on my physicality. I was doing 100, but broken up into sets of squats, push-ups, and sit-ups.
Okay.
And then I started seeing a therapist.
And see, all those things are very important. I think for people to understand is you got to feel good about yourself. Physically, you got to feel good about yourself. And all those things are just great points. And it doesn't matter where you are in your life, I don't think.
No.
I mean,
whether
really
you're hit that till 50.
Yeah.
52 or 51.
I think it's the same way with Steve and I. I mean, it's been that way too. I mean, I grew up in the Catholic church with my dad, my family. And it was just different. And I go to Crossroads and love Crossroads. And if my dad, not that he gave me crap about it, but when I was going to Crossroads, my dad's like, it's not church. That's not. And I'm like, Dad, it is. You do it in your way. I do it my way. And you know how Dad, my dad.
It's the old school.
It's the old school, Catholic way.
I grew up the same way.
So, but I think it's important, for everybody to understand how important that is, especially for somebody like yourself and Pam and everybody that we know, that it's okay to talk to a counselor. It's okay to make yourself feel good and, all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And it's important because what I found up until kind of my transformation is I'd stuff things down and I'd just stay busy to avoid, but I think so one of my rituals or rhythms of my life is I do church on Sunday, and then usually one day, I happened to do this yesterday, is I sit for an hour and a half with like a candle burning and worship music on and just process.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And just, I joked to Nicole last night, it's remember the guy from the Green Mile when he would get the healing and all the bees?
Yes.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So that's how I kind of compare just getting it. You got to get it out because it's like toxins in your body when you carry all that crap.
Yeah.
And see that's the positive part of you looking like, I mean, like I said, you'd be used to, I'd rather have, you know what I mean? Like it's inspiring for me to have someone like you talk about this. And I want everybody to hear it, that all the stuff that you go through, there's always a positive side to these things.
Oh, absolutely. And again, I asked Nicole before I came on, is she had always been in that mode, and she had breast cancer about 2 years ago.
Just real quick, Nicole.
Santa Becca was her maiden name.
I think she went to Anderson.
Yeah,
she went to Anderson. So,
and so that's what we talked about, is just changing your mindset of a place of gratitude versus a place of woe is me.
Well, and that's
there it is.
And Steve, awesome. Steve, don't you think that a lot of times we all get sucked in? I do, you do, about people are negative, so you go that way. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
and that's the whole thing. And I've tried to do that so much. We've talked about that, eliminating negativity out of your life, negative people.
Exactly.
I try to flick them off my shoulder, I can't hang.
Life's too short, and you got to live, and your outlook, Dan, is incredible.
It really is.
What'd you say?
I said I'm just being me.
Which is great.
No, it is.
That's perfect. People have the blinders on, and I know I've had blinders on before. You're thinking, oh, woe is me. It's just incredible just to hear your story, and your outlook and your faith is something that everybody should take note.
And I hope they do. And that's kind of why we wanted you to have you on here, and we thought of you instantly, was just because of what you've been through. And then let's kind of trigger off that and what other people, Steve and I are best friends, and if he needed a right arm, I'd give my right arm, because we've been that great of friends for such a long time. And you've had two classmates that have been really, really huge. Talk about two of your classmates that came through for you.
Yeah, so I was entering this fourth transplant, battling with worthiness, battling with, not to be blunt, but the market for kidneys, right, in Cincinnati. Right. I'd already done this campaign 8 or 9 years ago. And so I put those out, and, the hope factor was low. And then Dwayne Brandstetter, who graduated with me in '88 from Turpin, called me on, well, first of all, he bought like 10 or 20 signs from me, or paid for them.
And had them out throughout the city?
Distribute them. He's more out in Amelia.
Okay.
Which we'll give a plug to Kangaroo.
Absolutely.
No question.
So he bought some signs, and he's like, I want to do more. He got tested to donate. And then one day he asked for a picture. I'm like, oh, okay, what's going on? He's like, you'll see. And he put the billboard up right next to Dewey's on Fishman Avenue, and I was just floored. Yeah, I really was, and just an amazing dude. And we weren't really, we kind of ran each other, a party here and there when we were in high school, but we weren't that close or anything. So for him to do that was just amazing. And then Laura Taviani-Chacon, she got tested, which I didn't know at all. When you're going through this process, because of HIPAA, you do not know until, unless the donor wants to tell you.
Right.
And so I was feeling down. Another friend of ours, Laura and mine, is Gwen. Her maiden name was Berger. We had been talking through through the process, and she's like, I guess she relayed back to Laura that I was kind of in a bad place, and so Laura reached out and said she was a match.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So after talking, she went ahead and got tested to see if she'd be a match, or she already did this previously?
She already had tested back in November around Thanksgiving.
Okay.
And myself, I don't know if you're familiar with Rachel Wiley, or her maiden name was Elder, all Turpin, more Turpin folks. so we all had lunch around between Christmas and November, and she didn't tell me. She just was up for a blood test. She came up from Alabama. She lives in Birmingham.
Okay.
Wow.
And so she came up, got tested, and we had lunch. Then we went, I just like, oh, cool, yeah, let's all get together and blah, blah, blah. So then she got tested, and then she obviously was a match. So then she's got to go through testing to make sure that she is healthy enough, whether high blood pressure will eliminate you, and who knows what else.
Right.
And she even at the time had 2 small or 1 millimeter cyst on the kidney. So I'm like, oh no, I don't know if that's gonna.
Right.
Like I have no idea.
Right.
And so we were sitting in May Cozumel. She had come up and we had lunch next door, and she had just gotten the test. And on her phone came across while we were sitting together at the restaurant, which that was a neat thing to.
Wow, how about that?
Crazy.
Yeah. But in addition, Laura, so about 4 days after I got out of the hospital, because she was out in 24 hours, I was out in 4 or 5.
Okay.
She then makes her grandmother's lasagna recipe and bring,
no way.
Like
nice.
Like you've already given me a kidney, you don't need to give me lasagna.
That's great.
So
wow.
she's just a selfless individual.
That's a selfless act right there.
It really is. I mean, that's just incredible for both Dwayne and Laura to do that. That's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and so then leading up to transplant, we had a dinner with a bunch of Turpin peeps, and then the Sunday before the Tuesday surgery, I had Laura's family, her sisters, their husbands, everybody over to my parents' house, and we had a nice.
That's awesome.
It was almost like we were getting married. I joke. So
that's unbelievable.
But it was just fun because the families, because I didn't want it to be awkward for the families in the waiting room.
Yeah,
right.
That kind of thing.
And when was that?
That dinner was June 11th, and the transplant was June 13th.
Wow.
So we're hitting 90 days. What is today? The 9th?
Yeah.
So in 2 or 3 days, we'll be 90 days.
Wow. And you think about your first one and how long that period was, and look at you now.
Right. And I don't know if it's because my stomach's been cut on so much. I also asked the doctor to put these pain blockers in, like into the incision. I did not even take a Tylenol post-transplant.
Really?
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
That's
how are you? How are you feeling? And any side effect? Anything going on with anything?
I'm hiking, 4 to 6 miles, like here and there. Like I'll go to the nature center, or I work in a hotel.
How about that?
That's incredible.
It is incredible.
I can't even do 4.
What am I doing?
I didn't have any surgery. I can't even do 4 to 6 miles.
I walked up the stairs.
Yeah, I walked up and down the stairs here to go meet him.
Right.
That is crazy.
It's unbelievable.
To another house. Quick enough.
Great, man.
Good for you.
But so I mean,
good for you.
But I've always, and I did this for COVID. Like before each transplant, I'll kind of put myself into a training mode.
Yeah.
And like even for COVID, I'm like, let's go walk and build our lung capacity up, just in case.
Yeah.
Type of thing. So it's
great.
just about getting ready for what's ahead.
God, that's just absolutely incredible. I mean, so what do you say to people out there, like that are either going through something that you went through? It might not be just a kidney, it might be something else. I mean, I think you've pretty much said it. It's feeling good about yourself, the faith, and trying to stay as positive as you possibly can.
I think you start with the faith.
Yeah.
You start with your relationship. You had mentioned I grew up Catholic as well. Yeah. I never, it was sit down, stand up. But there's no relationship, and that's what I loved about Crossroads is a real relationship is built between you and God through whatever media, whether it be media, and what I'm finding, like I used to try to force things and make things happen, which I do still, but I kind of came up with this phrase, like faith plus action is, going to give you great results. You got to have the faith, but you can't just pray.
Yeah.
You've got to pray and act.
Faith.
Yeah.
Say it again. Faith
plus action.
Yeah.
Gives you great results. Is that?
Yeah. Because
we're going to get him speaking engagements.
I'm telling you.
I thought about like changing careers and being a pastor. I don't know.
You should really think about just your story is just, obviously it hit with us because when we were doing this, you were the first person we thought of. And not only you, but other people too as well. But you were one of the first, and then that triggered us to Pam. Right. And we're going to try to get Pam Moon, who also had several transplants too. And just her story has been inspiring too. And
no question.
Just everybody out there. And, we're just glad that, we're able to tell your story and tell your side of it. And, it's been incredible.
Yeah. And it's been telling my story 2 nights ago, or just it's very therapeutic for me because I think the more you talk about it, the more you kind of process through, and different thoughts and things come up just in conversation.
Yeah. Well,
so I appreciate
keep on keeping on there, Dan.
And that's my motto.
Keep on keeping on. There we go.
From Joe Dirt.
Maybe that's why I said it, because I watched it the other night.
I've kept that mentality since I saw the movie. Like, what a great mentality is keep on keeping on.
Keep on keeping on.
Yeah. Dan, we really appreciate it. This has been awesome. And you're really an inspiring story. And, and thanks to, your classmates, Dwayne and Laura. Without them, I'm sure, who knows?
Absolutely.
So Kangaroo roof out there if you need a roof. Kangaroo roof.
That's right.
But Dan, it's been great. Thanks for, I know we've been trying to get together for a while. We just had to get our schedules together, and I know it's kind of a busy Saturday, but thanks for coming here, and hopefully all this will inspire everybody out there, and maybe shed some light on just not only but faith and God and everything.
I'll say that just going through these transplants, you go to clinic and you see people that you can just tell from their body language whether they're in a place of gratitude or a place of misery. And it truly affects their recovery. If you have a kind of a crappy attitude, the recovery process is more difficult.
Well, like you said, you're around negative people, negative things happen. You're around positive people, positive things happen. So we're hoping that this right here will bring some positivity, and that's why we're doing this podcast, but also that your story will just inspire other people to live the life that you've, looking at it at a different light, going through some struggles that you've gone through and staying positive.
I appreciate it.
So that's awesome, Dan. We appreciate you joining us here. Steve's been unbelievable story that Dan's passed on.
I'm so happy we could hear his story, and it's affected me during this. I know that people are going to enjoy listening to this.
I was getting pretty emotional thinking about that and what you've been through, and just the struggles were just kind of like, wow. And he's staying positive like this. It was kind of getting to me, but it's been just a great story.
And then to have Jim Surger back as our sponsor.
It's been really cool. So again, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. So we're sponsored by Jim Surger. Jim Surger's 6th book is now out in paperback form. Steve and I, as well as 90 other folks from coast to coast, share their story of the tragic day on 9/11. Books are available anywhere books are sold, or jimsurger.com.
Great book.
Yeah, it really is. We got to participate in that and tell our side of the story on what we did on 9/11. So again, Jim Surger's been a big advocate of us, and
that's awesome.
Helping us out, and he loves our podcast. He's an awesome dude. Another one of those positive guys that you'll find here in this area. So, but Dan, again, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks.
All right. So for Steve Ellis, Dan Albers, and Dan Becker, you've been listening to the Positive Energy Podcast. Positive stories about positive people. We'll catch you next week.